So I know that games can be like super addictive, right? I have a brother and a cousin, and I know that they always go into like the rabbit hole of the games. Um, would you compare social media to kind of like the game of today, where like when you're playing a video game, right, you can like plug into it, you can unplug from it, but social media is just always kind of like there, like people have access to it 24/7, kind of like a never-ending cycle of it. When you're actually playing a game though, right, there's like story arcs, you're winning. With social media, it's just kind of like, I call it like a doom scroll, you're just scrolling. But would you compare that to like the game of today? What's your opinion on it?
That's a very interesting question. I wouldn't necessarily compare it. There obviously are games that are designed to like hook you instantly, and then have to pay to play another level. I don't really like those kind of games. I think those are quite harmful, especially to children or people are very impressionate. But even for people who are like more receptive to like addiction, for example, like you get addicted to a game and you just play, especially if they're trying to like get more money out of you, then you can just spend so much money and so much time. And I don't want to think of them as like games, because they are a game, but they're designed to just essentially be like a casino slot machine. You would just put money in it, and then hopefully you have fun for like the 10 seconds that you see the numbers come up, but then you have nothing else. You lost your time, you lost your money. With social media, I think the difference is that social media can have a lot of propaganda. It can have a lot of misinformation, which I think games doesn't really have to the same kind of sense, because they're trying to tell a story. Of course, you can still have games that are portraying women a certain way, men in a certain way, or they can have some of the older games maybe would not work today, in the way that they are stereotyping certain ethnicities or genders, or whichever it could be. So not saying that games are perfect in that kind of sense either, but like you said, doom scrolling and just who is owning the social media, like what is their objective, for example, especially now with the very recent elections and the president, for example, like who's owning the social media. I think with games there's a little bit less censorship, or someone trying to control the narrative, because there are private companies essentially, right? So
Right. And so it's interesting too, like for kids, do you think that there should be like an age limit to when kids are like allowed to play games or even to go on social media?
So, I mean, I think for, most of these like Facebook and everything, they do have, I think it's 13 or it's a 16 for certain apps. It's just not enforceable. There is some, you have the ESRB rating in the US, for example. So you have the age ratings to indicate like this is something that has a lot of violence, it's a lot of blood. You can usually see on the package, it will tell you like all bad language, or, maybe a lot of like suggestive themes or something like that. But usually parents, they don't really care. I see more when I used to work at GameStop, and that was back when Grand Theft Auto 5 came out. I would, they would come in with their kids and they're like 8 or 10, and I would tell them like, hey, this is like an 18 plus game. It's like a mature game. They're like, yeah, whatever. I don't care, right? It's like, okay, but you're the parent. I can't sell this game if the child will come in alone. But if the parent's there, I mean, technically, I'm not, there's no one by the law telling me I can't sell. If the parent agrees, then it's fine. Some of them will come back like, oh, you didn't tell me it was this and this. It's like, yeah, but you have to read the box, right? That's what it's for. So I think it's just also parents taking more interest what their children are doing, because same thing with social media, you can't control what they're seeing, but if you have a good communication with them and have a good relationship, then it's a little bit easier to see like what are they actually doing online. Same thing with games.
Definitely. Something that you open like an umbrella for me, because obviously parents have to guide children into what's convenient for their age, right? And start educating themselves depending on the group age, right? One of the things that I noticed in the last probably 5 years is that, for example, the European Union has protected their citizens from the usage of data from corporations like Meta, etc., right? And so that way, I believe that you don't get easily manipulated. Your data just, it's not like somebody's making a profit out of that. Like in the US, it's almost like our soul has been sold to these companies, and we can't manage to get out of it or do something about it. How do you see that in effect in Europe? How do you feel more protected in Europe when it comes to your data?
I mean, on a day-to-day basis, I don't see much more than, oh, do you accept that we are tracking your data? Like every time I go anywhere, it's just like a, yes, I accept these cookies, or no, only certain. Like, honestly, I never really read them. But I think the difference is that if I want to delete all my data from Facebook, I can ask them like, hey, you have to do this for me. And I think that's a good thing, even though from a company that had to implement the GDPR, it was like a nightmare. It's like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? We have to work so much around the system and everything. But I ultimately think it's a good thing, because like otherwise you can just take my data and just sell it forever without me knowing. I mean, I still have Facebook and I still have Instagram. I mean, I probably already sold my soul, but I do feel like it's a good way to just protect yourself.
Yeah,
Because like,
definitely.
the whole thing with
No, no, go ahead,
data is it's still quite new. Like, Facebook haven't been around that long, all things considered. So I think we're just learning as we go, like, oh, what is actually, I think I read somewhere it's like people comparing the data is the new oil, that is equivalent, like, hey, we want your data. This is the new thing that we want to trade with, right? So go ahead.
I'm in sync with you. You know something, and because that's exactly what happens. These companies are making so much money based on what you do daily, your actions, what you view. It's almost like your privacy is there for sale. And guess how much money you make? Zero. So to me is, how much do we value our privacy? How much do we value the things that we do, right? And why haven't we been able to really negotiate about to these companies about like, hey, you're making billions of dollars, right? And yes, I'm using your platform, but you're making so much money out of it. You say that it's free, but it's not free. It comes with a price tag.